All right, let's dive into an idea that might feel a little backward, especially in our always connected world. We're going to explore this thought that maybe, just maybe, real strength isn't found in the crowd, but in those quiet moments we spend by ourselves.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're alone and instead of feeling lonely, you actually feel, well, powerful?
It's such a strange feeling, isn't it? That silence that maybe felt kind of empty at first, it starts to feel full of clarity, of focus, and this really grounded sense of who you are. You feel more like yourself, not less. And that feeling, that's right at the heart of what we're digging into.
But let's be honest, it usually doesn't start out that way. At first, being alone can feel super uncomfortable. There's no background noise, no one to bounce ideas off of, it's just you and your own thoughts. And that's a space most of us are basically trained to run from.
And boy, do we have a lot of ways to run. Our world is practically built on distraction. We fill every silent moment with noise, with endless social media feeds, and with conversations that, just skim the surface. That scroll never ends for a reason. It's designed to keep us from ever having to face the quiet. But then you have this philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, who looked at all this completely differently. He believed that wanting to be alone wasn't some kind of social failure. No, he saw it as a sign of incredible strength and even intelligence.
Just let that sink in for a minute. What a wild idea, right? He's not saying it's about being antisocial. He's saying it's about having a totally different set of priorities.
So why did he think this? Well, his logic was that people who actually value their own minds are searching for meaning, not just noise. They don't need a crowd patting them on the back, telling them what's cool or what to believe. They get that the popular path isn't always the one that leads to any real insight.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Because when a person learns to not just put up with solitude, but to actually thrive in it, they become what you might call dangerous.
Now, when we say dangerous, let's be clear, we're not talking about being a physical threat. We're talking about someone who is so grounded in their own thinking, in their own self, that they become pretty much impossible to control, to manipulate, or to sway with all that empty noise out there.
And you can see the difference so clearly here. The person who follows the crowd needs that constant approval, right? Their opinions are basically borrowed from the group. But the person who seeks solitude, they've sat in that silence. They've wrestled with their own doubts and built their own inner compass. So they aren't so easily pushed around by peer pressure or scary headlines because their foundation is inside, not outside.
And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. History is absolutely packed with brilliant people who prove that real genius often comes not from chaos, but from stillness. He really believed that it's only in the quiet, away from all the distractions and the ego chasing, that the mind can truly open up and create something that lasts. So it's not an escape, it's more like a catalyst.
I mean, think about Beethoven. As he was losing his hearing, the outside world literally faded to black. But in that forced silence, the music inside his head just got louder, more complex, and more timeless than ever before.
You see that same creative force in someone like Emily Dickinson. She lived almost entirely in seclusion, a total recluse. And yet, from that quiet little room, she wrote poetry that just pierces through time and speaks to the deepest parts of us, even today. And it's not just for artists. It's for thinkers, too. Take Immanuel Kant, a guy who almost never left his hometown. He had the super strict routine, lived a life of quiet thinking, and inside those four walls, he completely rewired the foundations of modern philosophy.
And of course, you've got Thoreau. He didn't run from the world by accident. He stepped away on purpose. And those 2 years he spent alone gave us Walden, which is so much more than a book. It's like a blueprint for how to find that same freedom and clarity inside ourselves. So, okay, this all sounds great, but what does it mean for us right now? How do we actually do this? How do we stop seeing solitude as some kind of punishment and start using it as a tool to build our own strength?
Well, it really starts with a perspective shift. First, you just stop being afraid of the silence. You start using it as a space to actually hear your own voice again, to untangle your own thoughts from all the opinions you've absorbed. Second, you find new kinds of companions. You realize you're not really alone when you can have a conversation with the greatest minds in history through their books, or feel a deep connection to a piece of art or music. And finally, you use all that to consciously build an inner world, a foundation of your own values, your own beliefs, that's so strong you just don't need that constant approval from the outside world anymore.
And that's really the key takeaway here.
This whole idea isn't about becoming a hermit and rejecting the world. It's about preparing yourself. It's about building a self that's so solid, so clear, that you can go out into the world and engage with it on your own terms, without getting swept away by all the noise.
So, I guess I'll just leave you with this one question. In a world that is completely obsessed with speed and distraction, silence isn't empty. It's where the real stuff starts to surface. So, what truths are just waiting for you to finally get quiet enough to hear them?